Hi, welcome to the Frugal Frau. I'm Sukey, your host, and today we're going to show you how we're going to repair some potential places where this is going to crack with homemade butterflies, which we are going to make from hardwood. We have cherry here that was just a scrap and was going to be burned up, but hey, this is a good use for it. And but before we get started, please like, subscribe, and comment because it really helps our channel out. Thank you. Now, I have a wooden pattern which we've already made for our butterflies. And so this is a very long bench. It's 8.5 feet long. It is made from Douglas fir that was rejects from a construction site. So we got it for free, basically. So it has flaws in it. No worries. We have now glued it together and we've put about 5 pins in it. So there's a center because these were 2x8s, I think. And but there are flaws in the wood and we were going to have to keep it from splitting. So that's what the purpose of the butterfly is for. So now what I did was I just made this little pattern, and then you can download the pattern. And I'll give you the link below at the end of this video and in the show notes too. And I just have to go through and mark the places where it's likely to maybe continue to split. Now, none of these splits actually are that deep, but if I didn't repair these, they would probably deepen, and we don't want that to happen. And we're probably just going to oil this bench. And these are cherry, so they'll be stained a little darker. So that's just kind of fun. It gives it kind of a funky look, but we want it to have that homemade funky look. This video is sponsored by our friends at porcupinecoffeeroasting.com. Use SUKEY at checkout for 15% off your order. The link will be in the show notes and description. First, when choosing the wood for the butterfly patches, use a piece of wood with a grain that arches from one side of the patch to the other, as shown in this photo of the piece that we have chosen. This will keep the patch itself from pulling apart, as the forces of the wood that wants to split wants to pull it to either side. The length of the butterfly should be along the general length of the grain. First, we decided that our butterfly repair depth would be about 3/16 of an inch deep, so we planed the cherry scraps down to 4/16 or 1/4 inch deep. Tom traces the wood pattern onto the cherry we have chosen for the butterfly repairs. The reason why the butterfly repair pieces are deeper than the actual cuts to be made into which the butterflies will be inserted is because they can then be planed down to the exact bench surface for a perfectly aligned and smooth finish. This piece fit 3 of the 4 butterfly patches needed on this bench. Note that each patch is given a unique number, as after cutting they may not be exactly alike. Tom scores all the lines with a knife, and then he will cut into those scored lines to deepen that, just to aid in the sawing process. Tom uses his homemade turning saw to cut these butterfly keys out. Adjust the work in the bench vise as needed to facilitate cutting. All of the butterfly keys or patches have been cut. Tom checks to make sure that the top surface is square with the edge surface. If not, he trues it up by shaving off very small amounts, very delicately and carefully with a chisel. Tom traces by scribing with a knife butterfly key number 1 onto the area where it will be inserted. Do this very carefully and very accurately. Take your time. When you are finished with the scribe tracing, deepen your scribe marks very carefully with a knife. It doesn't matter if you go into the interior of this cut, because you will be cutting it out anyway. Each butterfly key and each patch point are unique. Number each key in its corresponding placement on the bench or other surface you're working on, so as not to mix these up, as your keys may not be identical. In addition to that, mark one corner of your key with an X or other symbol, and then use the same mark on the corresponding position just outside of your cut so that you can align these perfectly. You can see Tom's butterfly key number and an X alignment symbol in the photo. There's also a little alignment X not seen because it's at the same corner but just outside of where it's going to be cut. So please do that because that ensures that you have this accurately lined up with your butterfly key. Also, make a depth gauge for your cut. He scribes a scrap of wood for this purpose, but will make the patch cut just shy of this depth and will in fact set the router gauge, which he will use later, to that depth, which is just shy of the mark that he's going to make on this depth gauge. Tom begins to establish the outline of the cut using a chisel. We always make the short ends of our butterfly keys to match the width of this particular chisel blade. When deepening the cuts on the edge, use the chisel flat side out along the cut edge to help it stay square and perpendicular to the surface to be repaired. Tom begins to remove the waste using a smaller chisel. Go back and forth, re-establishing the edge with a larger chisel so that during the waste removal process, you do not accidentally tear out into the surface onto which you are making this repair. Tom continues to refine the patch cutout bottom with a chisel. He periodically checks the depth with his depth gauge, as he does not want to cut deeper than the actual depth of the keys. Now he's employing the router plane, and he never does this until he gets most of the waste removed, as it is much easier to remove the majority of the waste with a chisel than with the router plane. The router plane, which has been set to slightly less than the depth marked on the depth gauge, is just a tool to flatten the bottom and get it fairly accurate and exact. Therefore, the router also serves as the final depth gauge, and so at this point you don't need to use the little marked piece of wood. Tom tests the key, remembering to line up the little cross that he made on the upper right corner with the little cross you can see on the upper right corner of the cutout, or on the surface just outside the upper corner. And he uses a chisel, small chisel or a knife, just to carve away gently to make sure that the butterfly key fits snugly in place. He carefully continues to make the refinements so that this butterfly lines up perfectly with the outer surface of the cut. In the test fit, the key fits nice and snug. You can see clearly the alignment little plus or asterisk sign that he marked in the one corner on the surface of the key and also on the surface of this bench. Tom glues it in place with glue along the cut-out vertical surfaces and also on the bottom. He tapped it firmly in place with a mallet and then removed the excess glue. You can see that it is now sitting proud of the surface, and this is so that it can be played down to match the surface for a nice, smooth finish. After the glue is set, plane down the key to match the surface of the item into which you placed this key. Our surface is on an 8.5 foot long bench for our entranceway. Use the plane of your choice. Here Tom is using a smoothing plane. For the final smoothing, Tom just uses his trusty scraper blade. Note that your keys should be placed neither with the grain nor perpendicular to the grain. Tom usually angles them slightly off the perpendicular. This makes for a very strong repair that will not pull apart. The key is all installed, all scraped, and all flush. Here I enhanced its look with a little bit of alcohol. I am simply going to oil this bench, and because that is cherry, it will end up being darker than the fur into which it has been placed. Thank you for watching. Please like, subscribe, and comment. We really appreciate it. Thank you.